About 10 years ago, situational awareness was still a phrase you barely heard outside public safety, emergency management, or military circles. But then the Internet of Things exploded. Suddenly everybody had an app collecting data. Everyone had a sensor adding context. Everyone had a device connected and ready to call 911 to save the day. Well, at least that was the sales pitch. But that brought about a big problem, because when every application, sensor, camera, alarm, wearable, vehicle, and connected building begins dumping information into the PSAP, that doesn't automatically create situational awareness. Sometimes it just creates a bigger pile. And when dispatchers hear that backup alarm from the information dump truck, they know exactly what to do. Run like hell. Because nobody wants to be buried under a truckload of uncorrelated, unsorted, and unexplained data, especially while they're trying to manage an emergency. That's not situational awareness. That's informational paralysis. And the difference between the two could determine whether the next decision helps or hurts the response. And that's what's coming up next on TiPS Today in Public Safety.
Welcome to TiPS Today in Public Safety, your go-to podcast for today's breaking stories and public safety news. Here's your host, Fletch, with today's tips.
Welcome to TiPS. This is Fletch, and I'm a certified ENP. Welcome to TiPS Today in Public Safety, where every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, we take the technology affecting emergency communications and explain what it actually means to the people responsible for using it. Today we're going to talk about the moment when information has to become a decision. Because NG911, connected buildings, smartphones, vehicles, alarm systems, cameras, wearables, and IoT devices can now all produce more emergency information than we ever had before. But producing the information is just the easy part. Understanding it is harder. Determining whether it's relevant and accurate is still harder, and turning it into a safe operational decision while the emergency is still unfolding is where the real work begins. A decade ago, the problem was very different. Back then, situational awareness was barely a concept discussed outside public safety circles. And when we talked about it, we usually meant giving emergency responders a better understanding of what was happening well before they arrived. Where's the caller? What kind of emergency is occurring? Are there any hazards present? What other resources have already been dispatched? And that was because back then the problem usually was PSAPs didn't have enough information. But today the problem's increasingly that it may have too much information. Technology made the IoT market explode. Buildings became connected. Vehicles became connected. Phones became sensor platforms. Access control systems recorded and reported every door opening. Video systems started adding analytics, and wearables detected every fall, heart rate impact, and unusual movement. You had environmental sensors monitoring smoke, heat, air quality, water, motion, sound, and practically anything else someone could measure. And then every company producing one of these devices eventually reached the same brilliant conclusion. We could send this data to 911. Yeah, of course you could. But should you? Because that call taker's got nothing else going on, and they're just waiting for something to do. Here comes the dump truck. Imagine a dispatcher hearing a dump truck backing up towards the comm center. The truck bed begins to rise, and through the PSAP front door comes panic button activations, door alarms, motion alerts, smoke detectors, camera analytics, smartphone locations, connected vehicle information, medical wearable alerts, a text message, floor plans, building management alarms, and 3 applications describing the exact same event in 3 different ways. Look, at that point, the dispatcher's not gaining situational awareness. The dispatcher's trying not to get buried, because data without structure doesn't reduce cognitive workload. It actually increases it. Data without context doesn't clarify an emergency. It creates more questions. And data without correlation forces the call taker to become the correlation engine while simultaneously answering the call, questioning the caller, dispatching resources, updating responders, documenting the incident and listening for the next thing that could change everything. That's not a reasonable system design. More data is not the same as more information. This is where the industry needs to slow down and understand an important distinction. Data is an individual fact or observation. A door opened, a sensor activated, a phone moved, a camera detected motion, a person pressed a button. Now, information begins to emerge when those facts are placed into context. The panic button was activated in room 214. Seconds later, the access control system recorded the door opening. A hallway camera detected movement away from that room. A call came in, reported shouting on the second floor, and now we're beginning to understand the event. No single source told the entire story. No, the value came from correlating the sources. The system organized the clues into something that a human could evaluate and use. That is situational awareness. The decision is the operational product. Technology companies just love to count data elements. How many sensors can we integrate? How many feeds can we display? How many icons can we place on the screen? How many windows can we open? But the problem is that PSAP doesn't get paid by the data element. Its job is to support decisions. Where do responders go? What entrance do they use? What are they likely to encounter? Is anyone injured? Is the threat stationary or moving? Is the information current? Does another source confirm it? Do I need to escalate the response? What's got to be communicated right now? Yeah, the operational value is not measured by how much information reached the call taker. It's measured by whether the information helps someone make a better decision and whether they can make that decision quickly enough to make a difference. Correlation has got to happen before data reaches the call taker. Call takers shouldn't be expected to manually compare 5 applications, 6 timestamps, 3 location formats, and a whole collection of unlabeled alerts. No, the technology needs to do that work first. It needs to identify information associated with the same incident. It needs to place events in chronological order. It needs to translate device identifiers into locations that humans can actually understand. 2C231 doesn't mean squat to anyone, if you know you know. The data needs to distinguish a direct observation from an automated reference. And it needs to identify agreement between sources and highlight the conflicts instead of hiding them. If one system says the incident's on the 2nd floor and another says the caller is on the 4th, that call taker needs to know that immediately. The system can't quietly pick one and then present it as truth. Correlation can't mean allowing the computer to make the final operational decision. Now, correlation is organizing the evidence so the human can make that decision intelligently. Every piece of information needs a label. Look, every emergency data element needs to arrive with some basic context. Where did it come from? When was it generated? Is it live, delayed, or historical? Is it actually a measured fact or an estimate? Or is it a prediction created by some algorithm? Has another source confirmed it? And has it changed since the incident began? Because without that context, the data point's going to look much more authoritative than it really is. A location that's calculated 10 minutes ago is still going to appear as precise as one is 10 seconds ago on a map. Camera analytics will identify movement without knowing whether it's a suspect, an employee, or a reflection. A wearable is going to report a fall without knowing whether the person needs assistance. Yeah, the information may be useful, but only if the call taker understands what it actually represents. Automation should organize the decision. I think this is where AI and automation really provide the big value. It can help group related events. It can identify changes. It can surface the smallest but most relevant information. And it can detect contradictions in the data. That can reduce duplicate alerts. It can help turn a dozen separate data points into a concise operational picture. But just like in school, the system has to show its work. because the call taker needs to be able to understand why the system connected those events. What evidence supports that conclusion? What information is still missing? And how confident is the system that its interpretation is relevant? And that question is going to take us directly into Wednesday's episode, The Confidence Score. Because an automated recommendation without an explanation of its uncertainty is going to create a dangerous illusion of certainty. Be sure to catch that on 911tips.com. The human still owns the decision. Every dispatcher and call taker brings something that the sensor does not. The human understands human behavior. They can hear fear, hesitation, confusion, and background noise, as well as changes in the caller's story. They understand local procedures, responder capabilities, geography, and the operational consequences of being wrong. Technology should be there to support that judgment. It needs to reduce the cognitive burden, and it should organize the evidence. It should make the important information easier to spot and use, but it shouldn't bury the human under a truckload of data and then blame them for failing to find that one useful fact somewhere near the bottom. The bottom line. Look, a decade ago, we wanted more situational awareness. And today, nearly every connected device promises to provide it. But situational awareness isn't created by sending everything to 911. It's created by collecting the right information, correlating it, labeling it, prioritizing it, and then presenting it in a form that supports an operational decision. Now, the PSAP doesn't need another dump truck of data backing up to the call taker's workstation. It needs technology that sorts the load before it arrives. Because when seconds become decisions, the goal is not to give the call taker more things to look at. No, the goal is to help them understand what's happening, decide what needs to happen next, and then communicate that decision while it can still change the outcome. In Wednesday's episode, we're going to take the next step and ask a critical question. When an automated system recommends a decision, how confident is it? And how does a human know whether to believe it? That's the confidence score coming up on Wednesday's Tips Today in Public Safety. This is Fletch. Thanks so much for listening. I hope you learned something new. We'll catch you next time. Take care. Hey, it's Fletch. Thanks so much for hanging out with me today. I hope you learned something new. Remember to catch all of my previous episodes of Tips Today in Public Safety, published every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday on most social media platforms and streaming 24/7 at 911tips.com. My blogs are located at fletch.tv, and my professional website is at fletch911.com. Remember to like and subscribe. It really helps out the algorithms. And if you're in public safety, thanks for what you do every single day. We'll catch you next time. Take care.
You've been listening to Tips Today in Public Safety, your go-to podcast for today's breaking stories and public safety news. Hosted by Fletch and available every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Catch past episodes on 911tips.com. Be sure to like and subscribe, and remember to join us each week for the latest on NG 911. I am Spider Harrison, the official 911 voiceover dude. Catch me on Sirius XM on various channels, including 90s on 9, the 10 spot, and on the Weekend Countdown on Hits 1. Or don't regret it for the rest of your life. Either way, I'm good.